Yeah! It's time to talk about the best thing! The best thing is Squigs! I love Squigs! But yes, I really do like Squigs quite a bit, because Squigs are pretty cool. And I'm hoping that you will enjoy me talking about all kinds of different Squigs here. Also, this is a cool Squig. Look at his glasses. Okay, so this is revealing the Squig secrets. Ooh. Are you scared? Are you like, oh my god, death? Scary? Wow. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So Squigs are awesome. Hello, Squigs. You can do just about anything you want with Squigs, and they are really, really fun. Personally, almost every time I've played 40k as orcs, I've brought in at least a couple of Squig Hog boys, because Squig Hogs and just riding a giant beast into combat that looks like that and just having a is really, really fun to me. I greatly enjoy it. They can also be great friends. I love them for hugging. I do all kinds of great hugging with my squiggly friends. They tell me all the time, and I take that as, yes, I love you too, Catte. And I think that's pretty good. Also, something I find that's really funny is that Squig is actually short for squiggly beast. And I've just always found that kind of amusing. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into what kind of other Squigs and a couple other things. How Squig be? How does Squigs actually come about? Well, Squigs are actually a kind of orcoid. So here we have a low-res image of an orc and how it goes into being in 40k. And it's implied that this is also true in fantasy, but they never directly confirm that's how it works in fantasy. But yeah, so they grow in shade, and it can grow an orc, or it can grow aggression, or it can grow a snotling, or it can grow squigs. Squigs are clearly the best option there. And then you see, after they've dug out of their little burrows, they actually really like places where they can scavenge, where they can get like all kinds of stuff like that. Like if you go to an orc village type city thing, you'll just see a ton of them just like eating all kinds of things in the scrapyards and stuff like that. And Squigs have also changed quite a lot. In more modern editions, you don't really see the same kind of diversity in Squigs. Squigs mostly look orange and kind of round and stuff like that. But as you can see here on the cover, there's actually a little Squig in the bottom corner of this guy's picture, where he's got, that's actually an old picture of Gazgul, which I personally think is kind of funny. Gazgul looks kind of funny there. But you can see that there's just a Squig with lots of little sharp teeth. Though normally Squigs are not super hairy, back in the day they had all kinds of different appearances and things like that. These days you mostly get them as the big orange ball things, but that doesn't mean that it's the only thing that they have. But yes, they have become more uniform over time. Also, this guy has a kiss boot. That's kind of funny. So, let's pog some Squigs, my dudes. Let's squiggy pog. A squiggy pog. I'm sitting in front of the Squig again. Squig. That's Gobbler. Anyway, eating Squigs. So, one of the things that orcs make Squigs for is to eat them. You can see here, this is kind of what an eaten Squig looks like. It's just basically a, like, little weird thing with, like, no arms and legs, and you just kind of get them in a bunch to eat. Then you can pretty much eat any kind of Squiggy Wiggy, but some are better for eating, like eaten Squigs and juicy Squigs. Face eater Squigs are like for special occasions, and sometimes you grab them, they'll like grab onto your face, and so you got to be careful when you're doing that, okay? Also, if you want to pause and read it, there you go. I basically go over the same information anyway. Juicy Squigs are best for eating. Eaten Squigs are very tasty, or so I've been told. I don't really eat Squig, except for those times when I visit Orkies, and then sometimes they'll give you some Squiggy stuff. But you know, usually it kind of depends. They really like giving me these big plates of things, and it's always kind of funny to me. I mean, look. Orcs can actually throw a pretty good party and can be pretty nice in the right environment. You just wouldn't ever think it. But yes. I also like this. The best eaten Squigs live at the very bottom of the drop and are not only rare, but difficult to find and bring up from the depths. Since these squigs are seldom caught by the Gretchen and Snotlings, they often grow quite large and become even tastier as they get older. This type of squig is best cooked by expert Gretchen servants and are usually offered only to groups of knobs who can appreciate the finer aspects of orc culture. It's kind of funny. So a lot of this stuff comes from Here We Go, which is a pretty fun book that has like all kinds of older stuff about orc culture in it. Bomb squigs are some of my favorite examples, actually, as you can see here. They got all kinds of fun things going on. You can put mines and explosives and things, and sometimes you can like dynamite and put it in their mouth, and they love it. They like chewing on things, so then they just run at a target. It's pretty neat. I really enjoy it when they do that. But bomb squigs are not exactly a special kind of squig. It's simply a squig of a bitey or a K variety that has been like a large amount of like explosives placed on it and possibly in it. Now, they're good for blowing up enemies. They're actually really fun because if you bring some Squig Hog boys, you can get 2 bomb squigs if you have a 6-man group. And when you get up close, they just run up and charge and explode. And they can give you some fun mortal wounds, which is kind of cool. Also, the squigs are excited to meet new friends, so they run forward and explode. But yeah, they're really excited. They're really excitable. They ran forward and they tried to blow up me once, but then it just got a lot of cat everywhere. And then next thing you know, there were billions of cats. That planet is now a cat, which is kind of fun. There's also kind of funny because squigs called boom squigs, which explode by themselves. These squigs basically like have like a bunch of stuff going on inside of them. You just throw them, they explode. Or like if you get too close and they get scared, they go, which is pretty fun. There's also sploding squigs, which are different because they have multiple stomachs full of unstable chemicals. When shaken and thrown, they explode. Basically, we have a variety of types of ways to make squigs explode. I always thought that the sploding squigs were kind of the funniest because you just shake them and throw them. Which, you know, thankfully with orc reincarnation, they will be reincarnated either as a squiggy wiggy, or they'll be reincarnated as an orky worky, or a Gretchen, or something like that, and it's all a lot of fun. I have seen at one orc camp I visited, they had like a whole thing where they were like throwing exploding squigs and seeing who could throw it the farthest. I mean, they had a lot of them. I don't necessarily think it was a great idea though, because one of them accidentally shook it up and then like didn't throw it in time, so they blew up next to the other exploding squigs, and next thing I knew, that camp was mostly gone. But it's okay. Gob squigs. These squigs can clean your teeth. Basically what you do is you put them in your mouth. You put them in your mouth, and it'll just like clean out the orc's teeth by like rooting around the teeth, eating juicy bits of food stuck between them. Another variant of this squig is called chewing squig, and you just kind of pop it in your mouth and chew on it. I think it's kind of cool. They don't really have a taste. I tried it once, although the problem is, like, you know, I can't really put too many things in my mouth because then I'll swallow them into an infinite void, and you know, we don't necessarily want that. I'd rather have the gob squig in there for a little bit and then, you know, let it eat things. But I clean my teeth really well, and I absorb almost all material I consume, so I didn't really do anything. It just kind of rolled around in my mouth for a bit, which was kind of weird. But you know, hey, when in orc Rome, embrace orc Paris, as they say. But yeah, these guys are kind of fun. Basically, just like a little a little blob of stuff that you throw in your mouth. And I just thought that was kind of neat. Hairy squigs. Now this one is kind of funny to me. So these are actually, the one on the right here is actually a hair squig. It is not a hairy squig, and there is a difference. But basically, hair squig, what you do is they have these little teeth on them, and you know how orcs have those top knots? Basically, what that actually is you shove it onto your head and it'll bite and like cling on and then like wiggle around. You can get them in all sorts of colors. You can also dye them to like represent your different kinds of things. And if I move over here, you can see that you can get them in a wide variety of shapes. Some of them are like real big and long, so that's where you get like top knots and stuff like that. But some of them are like real small. And if you want like a whole mohawk, you can get like a bunch of itty bitty ones. But you can also get these like weird ones that are like longer and like it almost looks like a hairy mouth now that I think about it. But it's a good way to just demonstrate your clan loyalty and stuff like that. But yes, if you actually go by the explanations found around there, like the hairy squigs are one of these thingies, but the hairy squigs are actually a different thing, which is something that's used to close wounds. So it's basically just a big maw, and like if there's a bleeding wound, they just kind of match onto it, and then you can still see the hair and stuff, but usually they'll die after they drink the blood for a while and then fall off. very, very funny, I think. Now this one is kind of funny because if you read about this one, it talks about how orcs will get lice or ticks or leeches. Like the ticks and leeches I understand, but the lice thing I'm not 100% sure I understand. But basically, you just like let these little things run around your body and they'll eat all the little parasites and stuff that are on you. And sometimes, as it says here, they just like throw a bunch of them in their own clothing. So they'll just open up their shirt, just dump a bunch of them in, and they'll crawl all over and nip and nap and nap and nap and eat all of the little buggies and things. And then you can just kind of shake them off and they'll go and squeal away. It's kind of interesting, those things. Squighoppers. Squighoppers are something that you mostly just see in fantasy. But these are basically really big cave squigs that are more bouncy than other squigs. Goblins and others ride these squigs to get around faster. Squighoppers tend to be very bouncy, which is also a lot of fun. I rode one once, and I bounced up and down a lot, and then, you know, I was like, I need more of these. So then I duplicated more of them, and I had just a bunch of them, and I gave them, like, treats and things, and then they jumped around and ate stuff I wanted them to. They will eat you if you're uncareful goblin and you're mean to them. Don't be mean to them, be nice. There's also snuffler squigs, which can smell out fun things, like different kinds of mushrooms and stuff like that. And usually these ones are more stuck to, like, Warhammer Fantasy, and they're some of my favorite little things in Warhammer Fantasy, just big old squiggies. Isn't that great? Haven't you always wanted to jump up and down on a giant squig? I have. Now we have a bunch of random squiggies that we're going to go through. So paint squig used to make dyes and war paints. I couldn't find a picture of that one. Oily squigs, basically this is just like, to describe it to you, it basically almost looks like a hair follicle almost in a certain way, like how it's like round and then goes to a point, but like it goes like, basically they synthesize like fuel, and the mechs will grab it and like they'll basically milk their little proboscis tubies and squirt out like the synthesized fuel so that they can use them for their trunks and for the trucks and different things like that. Horn squig, a squig which is also a unicorn kind of, which is I think pretty fun. These guys are one of the squigs that you can get in Warhammer Online, and these are one of the squiggies you can get, which is I personally think pretty cool. Doesn't it look cool? Don't you like this squiggy? I like that squiggy. That's a good squiggy. I would pet. Now we have a bunch of squigs. This one is called a squig hound, used to keep Gretchens and other kinds of slaves in line, like an evil puppy. See, I don't really have slaves, so I just kind of have this thing, and then I freed all the slaves that I came across in orc camps. I said, you don't want those. Why don't you have cats to come help you? And then, well then, of course, because of the way I spread, basically made a bunch of cat orcs, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, so these things, basically, they chase them around, they go, "Argh!" when you try to escape or things like that. Gas squigs can be thrown to put a bunch of poison gas out. There are also gas squigs that you can get in Warhammer Online, which shoot little gassy ball things out the top of their heads. Screech squigs, which are basically just squigs that have really, really big lungs that go, "Argh!" really loud. And it's not necessarily the greatest. I wouldn't necessarily recommend being around them. Although I have had several orcs have like some bagpipe squig things, and then like some of the screech squigs, they were telling me they were making music, but it would mostly just sound horrible, scary even. A mimic, which you may think, oh, it's a squig that can take on different shapes. No. It's basically a parrot squig. They're a good pet. They're really fun. They have little beaks, but they mostly just like repeat things that you teach them to repeat, and it's kind of interesting how they do that. Buzz squonks, bugs squiggies, are probably one of the ones that I enjoy petting the least, although they are still cute. Basically, they're little evil bee biting type squigs, and basically what they do is they put a bunch of them into like pots or something with like holes in them so they can breathe, and they just shake them up and they disturb them, sometimes for weeks at a time until like they're really hungry and stuff like that, and then they throw them at enemies, and these things will just burrow in and out of people and eat. Not very pleasant, apparently. Although, I have found that somebody used a flamethrower against them, and it seemed to work pretty well. But that's Buther Squigs. Vampire Squigs, pretty much just a leech, and it's used by pain boys to go and suck stuff out of you. Now, something you might notice is that because some of these squigs come from earlier edition type stuff, orcs are a little bit different in that they are less just, you know, grit your teeth and bear it type of healthcare. For instance, we have vaccine squigs. The squig is the cure. Squig. But, We also have syringe squigs, which is just which is basically just like a squig that looks kind of like, well, it doesn't really look that much like a syringe. It's kind of weird, but it has like a long, sharp thing, and if you press it into somebody, it's basically just a big anesthetic squig, which is kind of interesting. Swab squig used to mop up, and sometimes you use them for nose blowing. Stick squigs, basically as exploding squig that's kind of similar to a stick bomb. I've seen dudes drive around with these and just like kind of like pull them and just throw them at people, and they go real big. It's kind of funny. A squiggin is basically just a messenger pigeon squig. It's basically just a pigeon, although it's a squig. It's very weird. Squig sharks! Ah! Oh no, it's street sharks, but now there's squigs. A squig shark is basically a squig, but it's also a shark. They look kind of like a mix of the two, but honestly, I would say that if you didn't tell me it was a squig, I would probably assume that it was just a different variety of shark. But basically on orc-infested planets, these things just swim in the big waters. They get real big if you let them. Squighawk, flying squigs big enough to eat orcs. Scary. Guard squig. These are bred by orc captains, very loyal to their masters and want to eat everybody else. Basically, these guys, orc captains are pretty smart, and they want to make sure that people aren't fiddling with their gubbins. So they develop all of these big, bitey type squigs that are loyal to them. Pretty neat, actually. Buzzing squigs. Boars in and out victims. Looks like a miniature air screw. Now you may be saying, wait a minute. But there's buzzer squigs and buzzing squigs? Yes, there is. So you can see here, the buzzer squigs look like this little mouth on wings. This thing looks more like a corkscrew almost. It's kind of funny. Chewing squig, which is the living chewing gum we mentioned earlier. Burn a squigs, burst into flames and thrown. I've never been able to figure out why exactly they do this, but yeah, I've seen guys throw these around, and like basically I taught them how to play basketball and they were really into it, but then they decided that they needed to add rules to make it more fun for orcs, so they started throwing exploding squigs and burn a squigs in there, and that is particularly the best time for if you don't want to get burned it. But I don't get burned it, so it's fine. We also have bag squigs. Basically they're just a squig that's got a big it's got a big extra gut for storage, dried and used for bags. Basically, they can just make bags, but sometimes they just take a squig and just kind of turn the squig into a bag. Oopsie. Ah! There we go. Ah, my lord! Technical difficulties, I pressed too many buttons! But anyway, now we have spiky squigs. You can see what a spiky squig is. It's basically just a big ball of spikes. You can basically put these in there and they can like become like a quick release system, which is kind of funny if you put them into they also have like poison inside of them. Basically you just pick up a ball squig and throw it, and if you put them in like a bionic arm or something like that, or you can put them in catapults. I've seen people put them in catapults, although they're less successful in catapults, I've noticed. Ballowthorn squig. This is just a squig that just poops everywhere. Sometimes you throw it into your enemies and they'll get disgusted and do stuff like that, but sometimes they just get shot out of the air. I would think a splodin squig, or you know, maybe a flamey squig, a burn a squig would be better here, but you know, I'm not the one growing poo squigs, so I wouldn't know. Herd squigs. These are used by run herds to control other parts of the run herd's herd, which is kind of similar to the guard squigs or the hound squiggies, but a little bit different. Flesh eater squigs, valuable squigs who have giant crocodile-like mouths that lose their teeth after a while and don't usually breed in captivity. Basically, you have to like just let orcs run wild for a little while, and then these things will start appearing, but not a ton of them. And their teeth are useful because they're big enough that the orcs will still use them for currency. In case you didn't know, orkies use teeth for currency, but they won't use human teeth. They usually use orc teeth, and because orc teeth will replace after a little while. Bitey squigs. Used in orc squig launchers, you can guess what they do. They bite. They go. Bile squigs. Any sort of squig that spits, vomits, or I meant to put spray, but I put pray harmful goo. Can I get a harmful goo? And then it sprays everywhere. But yeah, it sprays harmful goo. They squeal and wiggle while spraying bad stuff on the enemy or the orcs. I mean, they can certainly be a hassle to deal with, but I found that once again, just getting some cave squigs or bitey squigs is generally just easier. Now, holy guacamole, these are the biggest variety of squigs, which are the squigoths. The largest type of squig. Orcs usually use them for riding and as giant living weapons. You can put all kinds of armor, and you can also put like gigantic weapons on the back of them. But there's also Orcosaurus, which is the largest breed of squigoth, mostly found among feral orcs. For some reason, as orcs develop more and get more technologically advanced, because sometimes you don't get as many brain boys when orcs are just starting to form, and if they don't already have like mech boys and pain boys and stuff like that, it can take a little while for them to emerge. Or they'll have like much more primitive versions of the stuff. So basically, an Orcosaurus usually appears among those kinds of orcs. It doesn't normally appear among like regular orcs. So it's kind of neat when they do appear. They're very, very large. And the Colossal Squig in the big category is just a largest of the non-squigga squigs. They are always hungry and are basically a giant moth with legs. I would not necessarily recommend getting too close to them. They do like to bite, like most things here. Orcosauruses are also kind of fun. I have actually gotten to see one in the life, and I gotta say, fun to ride on, very bumpy. It was kind of like riding on a gigantic camel. If you've ever ridden on a camel, that'll tell you what. And now music to my ears, squig pipes. These squigs are just used for musical instruments. You can see the little page there. They're kind of fun little guys. I've seen people use them before quite effectively, although when combined with the screech squigs, it was just a lot of noise. Attack squigs, also known as cave squigs. They are the most common type of squigs and the ones you think of when someone says squig. Weird squigs are kind of fun because they're actually psychic squigs, and they have similar abilities to those of like weird boys, and you can also use them as a bomb. It seems like a lot of squigs are basically bombs, but you know, to be fair, with orcs, a lot of things just get turned into bombs. And squighogs are the ones that the Beast Boys ride on, and they're pretty cool. I greatly enjoy riding on them sometimes and going, bow, 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 I'm a cat, and then charging around. You know, it's really fun. So we went over all kinds of different squigs there, but that's a lot of squigs. Squigs are great, and I love how many uses they have and stuff like that, although I tend to treat them more like pets than like weapons, and apparently that's weird according to orcs. You should make up your own squigs. That's another thing. What I found going through these older versions of squigs and all the different things they had is that they're pretty neat, but there's just so many of them, and some of them just seem like very silly. And I think it would be kind of fun if you decided to make your own. Let me go down a little bit. If you decided to make your own squiggies. Also, give a squig a hug. They deserve it. They're very cute and good. And if you treat them well, they're not as aggressive. I promise. Although if you put them among orcs, they tend to get more aggressive. It's funny. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed that deep dive into squigs and all of the fun things that the squigs can do, and all the fun uses for squigs. What squig was your favorite? Leave it down in the comments. Yeah. I personally still think, though, that my favorite is probably either the squig hog or just the bouncing squigs. They're just a lot of fun to ride on, although you should bring some cushioning for your butt, because I hear that for most people, if you ride a regular bouncing squig, it'll bounce on your butt so much that it'll start to hurt. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful day, and I hope that you know that I love you and God loves you, and bye-bye, love you, bye. Go hug a squig. Bye-bye, love you, bye, bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.